This is Jordan Peterson. If you're unfamiliar, then I don't know what rock you've been living under. Anyway, he's kind of a right-wing extremist at this point. Kind of always has been. Very full of himself, right? Well, he decided to interview a guy named Eric Metaxas, guy on the right here. Eric Metaxas wrote a book called Letter to the American Church. That is what my next book's going to be about. I think I'm going to name my next book, Letter to the American Church, A Response. He brought him on basically to talk about it. Well, his book, Letter to the American Church, is pretty much framed as though we live in Nazi Germany right now. We're in Nazi Germany. And Eric Metaxas and Jordan Peterson are the victims of Nazis right now. They're being attacked in the form of being canceled, and they're being criticized and everything, and that's exactly what the Nazis did to the Jews. They criticized their bad behavior, right? It's about all they did. Anyway, I wanted to listen to these two people complain about being persecuted by Nazis. By the way, I haven't even told you who the Nazis are yet that they think are persecuting them. Do you want to know who? Trans people and trans allies. Those are the Nazis in their world. Really. I'm not joking. So let's listen to these two people cry about being persecuted by trans people for believing that trans people should burn in a house fire. They can hold any belief they want. They chose to believe that trans people should burn in a house fire. Why are they being criticized for that? That's just wrong in their mind. Anyway, let's give it a listen. By the way, this isn't part one. If you didn't see the others, don't sweat it. This stands independently of the rest. I'll give context if it's missing. Oh, by the way, check out my book, owenmorgan.com/book. I would appreciate that very much. It's about Jehovah's Witnesses, my experience with them. It's called, well, the working title at the moment is Understanding Jehovah's Witnesses. It's useful for anybody, Christian, non-Christian, Jehovah's Witness, non-Jehovah's Witness, anybody, absolutely anybody. It's good for you. It's a book that should be interesting to you no matter who you are. So give that a look.
Nobody saw what was coming, but people with eyes to see, people like Dietrich Bonhoeffer, they could smell this. They said...
Dietrich Bonhoeffer apparently was a pastor who fought against Hitler. I'm not really sure. All I know about him is what Eric Metaxas has said, so... Trust nothing that Eric Metaxas says. You got to look it up yourself.
If you follow the dots, they lead in this direction. The people who are seizing power now and being allowed to seize power now by cowardly people, by confused people, those people trying to seize power, when they get the power, they're going to use it for very wicked ends.
He's talking about trans people. When people gain power, they're going to use it for wicked ends. He's talking about when trans people or trans allies gain access to power or whatever, then they're going to kill whoever they don't like or whatever.
Those people trying to seize power, when they get the power, they're going to use it for very wicked ends. Their presuppositions are the antitheses of our presuppositions. They are atheist.
Like, I don't know what to say. Their presuppositions are the antithesis of our presuppositions? What do you mean by that? I don't have any presuppositions. Usually when I hear people say the word presupposition, what they're talking about is the fact that they're presupposing that God is real. When they enter a debate, to have that debate, to use logic at all, you must presuppose that God is real, which is a completely unproductive way of debating anything at all. It's called, they're called presuppers. I don't have any presuppositions at all. What do you mean? My presuppositions are the antithesis of yours. What?
To use it for very wicked ends. Their presuppositions are the antitheses of our presuppositions. They are atheistic. They don't believe in good or evil. They only believe in power and the culture.
Like, what are you talking? I have a concept of good and evil. I personally happen to be atheist, but I know an awful lot of Christians who are horrified by this dude's beliefs right here, the way that he views the world. Absolutely horrified by it. You don't have to be an atheist to be horrified by this guy and the way he operates. So I'm really not even sure like what he's talking about right now.
Cultural elites, the globalist cultural elites today, are working with the same presuppositions. They couldn't care.
Like, what do you mean when you say presuppositions? What are people presupposing? What are you talking about? Why is he using that word over and over again? It doesn't make any sense in this context.
They are working with the same presuppositions. They couldn't care less about the things that most of us would take for granted: the dignity of the human being, the sanctity of life, all of the...
What? I believe in all of those things. I think human life is the most valuable and precious thing on planet Earth and should be protected at all costs. No matter what. No, I'm sorry. It's the most valuable and precious thing in the universe. That's the way that I see it. And one death, one, is a loss to everything and everybody. It's a loss. It is one of the... It's a travesty. It's horrific and disgusting. I am an atheist. I'm not sure why this guy seems to think that I can't feel this or I can't view things this way, but guess what? I do. See how easy that was? For the record, I'm sure it's probably already obvious to everybody watching, but let me just say it anyway because this guy doesn't seem to get it. The Bible is a big book, and you can pick out any position you want from that book. You can find a moral belief, or you can pick out a moral belief and you can justify, you can find it in those pages. 32,000 verses, 66 books written over the course of thousands of years by dozens of different authors with different levels of social status and wealth. They all had different ideas about how everything worked. You can find people who are very influential, God's people, who believe that you should take care of the poor and love everybody and not hate anybody for anything. And you can also find people in that book who believe that you should hate people for certain reasons. You should hate people because they're gay or because they don't do this or that or whatever other thing. You can find any moral position in the Bible. Any moral position. Now, this guy is, as expected, completely full of shit, giving us the idea that he gets his objective morality from the Bible, when it's literally impossible to do. It is impossible to get objective morality from the Bible. And he says it's impossible for atheists to value life. Well, guess what? I'm an atheist. I value life. I disproved what you just said. See how that works? Everything out of this guy's mouth is a lie or is a mistruth or what do you call it? An alternative fact? Is that what Trump's press secretary called it? Alternative fact? He didn't lie. He just gave us an alternative fact. Everything out of his mouth is propaganda in some way. Everything.
These things that people have lived for and died for, they are not only not interested in those ideas, they're at war with those ideas. And
I'm not at war with any ideas. I want everybody to live, and every death is a travesty.
So there are, some parallels that we can make and some that we can't make. But basically, you and I have never seen anything like this in the West. And it's astonishing the speed at which these things have been happening.
What things? What's he talking about? I don't understand. It's astonishing the speed at which what's happening.
In the last week, YouTube took down my discussion about what is a woman and associate.
Oh my God, dude. Look, you want to talk about this stuff, do it in book form. You are perfectly free to do it in book form. Hell, you can do it on Rumble if you'd like. You can talk about this stuff anywhere you want. But you have to be careful where you talk about, but you have to be careful what you talk about when you're being paid for certain things. You can't expect every advertiser to want to be associated with somebody who's talking shit about trans people all the time. Welcome to the world. First time?
Issues in that direction with Matt Walsh. And they took down a video that was a year old that I did with Helen Joyce, who's an economist, journalist, and a very credible person on the...
Yeah, I don't know who that is, but the fact that he's saying that she's credible makes me seriously doubt her credibility.
Trans minor surgery scandals in the UK, which have resulted in the change of a number of UK policies, not that podcast specifically, but those issues. But most relevant, as far as I'm concerned, they took down a discussion I had with Robert F. Kennedy. And the reason for that, in principle, was
RFK Jr. is an anti-vaxxer and absolutely insane. He tried to run as a, he tried to run as a Democrat. I don't know what he was thinking, why he thought that he would be able to get away with that, but he finally changed to independent. And then Fox News started going after him after he started running as an independent because they realized he'd be picking off voters from Trump. These people are shameless.
And I had with Robert F. Kennedy. And the reason for that, in principle, was he veered into the vaccination criticism domain. And,
no, because he falsely and incorrectly made claims about vaccines that were not true, that he must know are not true, that you certainly know are not true, I'm sure. I would guess. And it's YouTube's platform. If they don't want that garbage on their platform, they don't have to have it there. You are big enough and rich enough to have your own book, to publish your own book, like me. I published my own book, and I found that it costs about $6,000 if you want to go cheap. It costs $6,000 to publish one book. Book covers and all, artwork and everything, all of it. $6,000. Jordan Peterson's published books before. He can publish anything he wants. He wants to make those criticisms. He can do it in book form, or he can do it on Rumble, or Telegram, or anywhere else. X? Go on X and talk about that shit. Dude is such a martyr. It's insane.
It's not like I walk arm in arm across the desert with Robert F. Kennedy. I think he's an interesting person. He's a bull in the china shop, just like Trump. And God only knows what he's up to or what he'll do. But, and here's the issue, he's running for president. And he's in the middle of a presidential campaign.
Okay.
And YouTube took down one of his videos.
Well, they did that because he was No, they took down his video. They took down Jordan Peterson's video. But aside from that, they took down the video because he was spreading disinformation. He was spreading lies about how vaccines work. He was misleading people. He was making people think that vaccines are unsafe when they are not. You can't just say, hey, guess what? I'm running for president, and suddenly have complete 100% immunity from any repercussions whatsoever under any circumstances. Does not work that way, bro. And he knows that.
And I'm looking at this from outside. My country, Canada, is as screwy as you can possibly imagine, and then some. But
Sure, sure.
I never expected to see this in the United States, that a corporation would interfere with an ongoing presidential campaign.
But is it the United States?
That's not what happened. A corporation was preventing disinformation from spreading, which is what corporations should be doing, in my opinion. Now, aside from that, did they actually take the video down? Is that true, what he said? I don't know. Did they take it down, or did they just demonetize it? Because I wouldn't be surprised if it was simply demonetized. This guy, and, you know, but you know what? Both of these guys seem to lie for a living. The things that they say, more often than not, are untrue. They're false. So did they even take the video down? I don't know. Either way, you don't have a right to YouTube's platform. If you really want, if you have something you want to say and you want to get it out to other people, Rumble exists. You can write a book about it. You can stand on the street corner and scream it with a bullhorn if you want. That's legal in some places. You can write it on a piece of paper and tape it to walls in public, I think. That's legal. You can organize a protest. There are ways in which you can spread your ideas, your absolutely nonsensical garbage ideas, without interfering with a private company's right to support what they want or to do what they want or whatever. Now, aside from all of that, freedom of speech, the intent behind it really was to protect people from being jailed from what they said. There was a period of time in England when criticizing the king or the queen or the whoever, just saying I don't like them, could get you put in jail for the rest of your life with absolutely no recourse. There was a period in time where that was the case. The founding fathers put into the Constitution a protection against that kind of thing. They didn't want that to be the case anymore. They wanted people to be able to say and do what they were going to say and do, and not worry about whether they were going to be jailed for what they said. But this guy is, of course, going to pretend to be a martyr and act like he's being censored and all this other junk, when the only protections in the Constitution against censorship are protection from being jailed for what you say. And even that has limitations. So get over yourself, Jordan Peterson and Eric Metaxas. Stop pretending you live in Nazi Germany, because it's actually, it's not offensive to me. You know who it's offensive to? It's offensive to the 6 million Jews who died in Nazi Germany when you pretend that you are one of those Jewish people.
Is it? I mean, when you're dealing with Google or YouTube or any of these companies, they are, and this is an interesting thing, and this is why if you're a whore for money, you don't...
A whore for money. Okay, go on.
Care whether someone is patriotic or has any fidelity to American principles. And most people, most politicians don't care. But we need to care. So the idea that you would have Google allying itself with China and, you know.
That's not happening. What are you talking about? Google allying itself with China? Like what? What do you even mean by that?
As I say, why? For money. Okay, what could be more despicable?
Well, you know, no, I can tell you something that's more despicable than that. I think that if you're whoring for money, so to speak, that there's actually something predictable and admirable about that. And let me lay the argument out, okay? Partly because if I know that you are actually motivated by money, and even if that's your single
there's nothing wrong with being motivated by that, but you and I know that there are limits. If somebody says, you know, it's like that scene in The Third Man. If I know I can make...
Okay, I don't know what The Third Man is. I don't know why he decided to bring this up. Why he thought it was a good idea to whatever, like... This guy doesn't make any sense with anything that he says.
A certain amount of money. Orson Welles' character, you know, if a few of those people disappear, who cares? In other words, this has always been the question, right? Somebody says, well, you can make a lot of money, but it's going to involve you're allying yourself with people who are torturing and murdering and sexually abusing people. Are you okay with that? Most people would say, I hope no. Some people would say, well, I don't know. But the point...
Okay, I don't know what these people are even talking about, but let me lay this down for you. God, I didn't know I mastered Hades. That's cool. Good, good, good. And I mastered Phoenix also. Awesome. And Knights of the Round, it has... Oh, it's not even halfway mastered. That sucks. I could be rich tomorrow. I'm talking literally rolling in money rich tomorrow if I chose to. Do you know what I would have to do to be rich, rolling in like Scrooge McDuck diving into a pool of coins that would not snap my neck the moment I hit them? You know what I'd have to do to be that filthy rich? Millions of dollars. Tomorrow. Go to the Templeton Foundation or Answers in Genesis or Eric Metaxas or whatever. And you know what? I'd have to sit here. I'd write a book about how I was a believer. I'm now a believer. I went from atheist to Christian, and not just Christian, evangelical nutcase. And I'd go on Eric Metaxas' show, talk about how right he was all along. I'd go on Jordan Peterson's show and say, you were absolutely right. I can't believe that I thought the things that I thought. I could whore myself for money and be filthy rich. I'm talking millions of dollars tomorrow. But I can't, in good conscience, do that. Because I don't believe it. That's not who I am. I don't accept that. I can't do that. I say I could be rich tomorrow. Really, I can't be rich tomorrow because that's not who I am. So anyway, there is a limit to what people will do for money. There is. That limit is not hard to find, really. But these people... I don't believe that these people even have a limit, to be perfectly honest. Eric Metaxas, look at Dave Rubin, for example. I don't think he has a limit to what he's willing to do to make money. Does he believe the things that he says? I don't think he does. Do these people? I don't think they do.
Is what we're talking about right now is people who are looking the other way. They would gladly do business with slave traders. They would gladly do business with the Nazis if they could make a buck.
He's talking about us, by the way, me and you. If you're listening to this, he's talking about you. Would you do business with slave traders to make a buck or whatever? I know that I can't say for sure that these people wouldn't, that Eric Metaxas and what's his name and Jordan Peterson wouldn't. I don't know.
Cynically, some of them believe, listen, if I'm not going to make a buck here, someone else will. I might as well make a buck. And that's what
that thought has literally never crossed my mind before, and it's disturbing that it's crossed his mind.
With the Nazis, if they could make a buck, they cynically, some of them believe, listen, if I'm not going to make a buck here, someone else will. I might as well make a buck. And that's what we're dealing with now with all of these globalist corporations.
Well, I think it's worse on the YouTube front because They've left me alone up till now. And I think that what they're doing to buttress their ideology is actually counterproductive, at least in this situation on the...
So he says YouTube's left him alone up to now until they removed one of his videos the other day. Fascinating. Okay. Wow. I'm really not that happy about that. I'm not happy that YouTube decided to just leave the dude's videos up, no matter how much disinformation they contained. That's kind of wrong, in my opinion, but okay, whatever.
Economic front, the thing that frightens me about the YouTube ideologue types is that I think that they would act even against their own narrow economic self-interest.
Correct.
Push their damn agenda. Well, that's
You're
what
right.
I mean by worse. If you're honestly greedy,
I agree with you. No. I agree with you.
Okay.
But the point is it's mixed. The point is it's mixed.
Yes.
When Hitler took over in the 30s, some people, it's just like today. It's exactly like.
There's a problem with this game, Final Fantasy VII on the Switch. It keeps freezing, and you have to restart it. That's very frustrating. I feel like I missed something important with these people. Let me just step back, listen again.
I think that they would act even against their own narrow economic self-interest.
Correct.
Push their damn agenda. Well, that's
You're
what
right.
I mean by worse. If you're honestly greedy,
I agree with you. No. I agree with you. But the point is.
All right, so he's saying, okay, so Eric Metaxas was saying people will only act in their own self-interests if they think that they can make money no matter how depraved the cause is, no matter how depraved their goals are, they're going to do it. But Jordan Peterson says he doesn't think that it's like that. He thinks that people are willing to do bad things just for the sake of maintaining a narrative, I guess, right?
It's mixed. The point is it's mixed.
So it's mixed. So some people will make money off of evil things, and other people will do things that are bad just to maintain a narrative, I suppose. Okay. I mean, these people are so completely full of shit. They've created this big, ridiculous, nonsensical structure to explain everything away, to explain their worldview away that makes no sense at all. None.
Yes.
When Hitler took over in the 30s, some people, it's just like today. It's exactly like today, because this is human nature. They simply didn't want, quote unquote, any trouble. So they were willing to look the other way when something bad was happening.
Like they're trying to form out this absurd ideology that makes no sense from the start, and it's leading to absurdity, is what's happening.
There were some people didn't want to lose their jobs, so there's an economic thing. But the point is, evil never operates in a vacuum. It works with things like human interest. And the question is, there's this amalgam of things going on. For some, it's purest greed. How much money can Pfizer and company make? They don't give a damn about the side effects or the what. There are people.
They do care about the side effects, actually, and there are a lot of protections in place to guarantee that those side effects are tracked and people are protected from them. That is absolutely the case. Whether you believe that or not, it's irrelevant. In fact, Pfizer and Moderna and the government, generally, the U.S. government, are tracking side effects of the vaccine in ways that you wouldn't even imagine. They're doing that because that's their job. That's the FDA's job. That's what we pay them for, to make sure that people don't die from side effects or whatever, to make sure that our medicines are safe. They are literally there to make sure medicine is safe for people to take. That's it. And these people seem to have some ass backwards reasoning to think that they're out to get them, that it's all fake, that they're in it for money or some other shit. Come back to reality with the rest of us, guys. For real. This is insane.
People who are in it for the money, and there's so much money that they're willing to look the other way.
What money is there? Like, where are they finding this money? Who's giving them money? Let's say we have Pfizer, right? A company who produces a vaccine for COVID-19, okay? Now, who's giving them money exactly? The U.S. government already pre-purchased this vaccine. They pre-purchased the Pfizer COVID vaccine, like forever ago, in Operation Warp Speed. Donald Trump did that under his administration, remember? We're not paying them. We get COVID vaccines for free, or it's charged to our insurance, one or the other. Who's giving them all this money? What the hell are you talking about? It's like they live in another reality where they're like the victims of every situation. It's insane.
There are other people who are pulling the levers.
Who? What people are pulling levers? What are you talking about?
Other people that couldn't possibly need more money, whether it's George Soros or Bill Gates. So it's an amalgam of things, and we're dealing with all these things. We're asking the question, how does evil operate? That's how evil operates in every kind of way. And every single person has a choice whether...
I see that Eric Metaxas is a pocket square, man. I can appreciate that.
...to participate or to say, I refuse to participate.
So he's saying that there are really evil people out there like George Soros, and they're trying to kill you, and you have the option to not participate and not be killed, not kill other people. I don't have any clue what he's even talking about. Okay.
Would rather do the right thing and trust God with the results. And that's why in Letter to the American Church, I'm writing specifically to those people, Christians, who
right back to his book now.
Claim to believe in the God of the Bible, to believe that Jesus defeated death on the cross. Well, if you believe that, you are going to presumably behave differently because...
Dude, I'm on the struggle bus, okay? These two people... Jordan Peterson and Eric Metaxas are renowned thinkers, and not just renowned thinkers, but renowned speakers. They're invited to speak at events all the time. They have speaking fees. People pay them tens of thousands of dollars to speak at events. And I am on the struggle bus over here trying to make sense of what the hell they're saying. What are you guys even talking about right now? I am so lost. You don't even know how lost I am right now.
You believe that because you have...
Okay, so you said something core there, you know, and I think it's core to...
Finally, he said, wow, oh my God. You're telling me that I'm actually making sense for a moment? Okay, because I felt like I wasn't making sense through literally any of that.
No. No, we're just getting closer and closer to the point, which is a good thing to do in a discussion.
They're not getting closer to any point. Like, they're not making any sense about anything that they're saying, either of them.
So you're implying and also stating explicitly a theory of Christianity, and one of the key points that you just made was that if you have faith, which, by the way, I think is a form of courage. It's a form of existential courage. It's a decision to stake yourself on something. You will, you said, do the right thing.
Wait, so faith is a form of courage because it's courageous to stake yourself on something. Okay. Well, I guess that means that I have courage for staking myself on being an atheist then, right? Is it like, is that how Jordan Peterson views it? Is that the case?
On something. You will, you said, do the right thing and let God take care of the consequences. Okay, so my understanding of that is that I've been trying to conceptualize faith, I suppose.
Eric Metaxas said that in his book. I took notes, remember. I don't know which part we're in, so I'm just going to say this again. Eric Metaxas is talking about his book, Letter to the American Church. And I intend to write a response book to it called Letter to the American Church, a Response. Eric Metaxas mentioned specifically what Jordan Peterson said just now. Listen again.
On something. You will, you said, do the right thing and let God take care of the consequences. Okay.
So what he's saying here, Eric Metaxas addressed in chapter, let me find it, I have it here, chapter 16, The Final Push. He basically said, following God takes wildness. It takes being radical. And he told the story, the parable in the book of Matthew. I don't know if you guys remember this one. I'll tell it to you if you don't anyway. There's a parable where this guy, a king maybe, I'm not sure who exactly, gave some money or gold or something to 3 people. He gave... Uh-oh. The pot ran off. I didn't know he could do that. Wow, that sucks. I thought he just stole stuff from me. I had no idea that he'd run off. Wow, that sucks. Anyway. The king or whoever it was gave, I think, gold to 3 different people. And he said, I'm going away, and I'll be back in like a year, and I'll see what you do with my gold, or whatever it is. I'm doing this from memory, so bear with me. If I get it wrong, forgive me. So he gives, like, I don't know, 10 pieces of gold or whatever to 3 different people. One guy, when the king returns, says, look, I've made 10 more pieces of gold for you. And he says, that's fantastic. I will give you 10 cities as payment for making this money for me. Second person says, I made 5 pieces of gold for you. And he says, fantastic, thank you so much. Okay, I'll give you 5 cities to control for making this money for me. And the third person said, you're a harsh master, and I was afraid that if I lost it or whatever, that you would hurt me. Like, you would, like, beat the shit out of me or you'd kill me. So I carefully and gingerly wrapped what you gave me in cloth and buried it. And now I'm bringing it back to you, and here it is. I didn't make anything from it, but I didn't lose anything either. And the master, unsurprisingly, in the story, beats the shit out of the person for not making him money. That's the story. And from that story, Eric Metaxas, I mean, this was in Letter to the American Church, the book that he wrote. From that story, Eric Metaxas derived this message. There is no in the middle. You must be extreme. One way or another. You must be radical. You must be on the fringes. You must have extreme behavior on God's behalf. Now, if that extreme behavior is the wrong behavior, God will sort it out at the end of the day. He'll punish you or he'll reward you. But either way, if you aren't a radical extreme nutcase on God's behalf, he will punish you. So you better be radical and extreme in one way or another. That was the lesson that Eric Metaxas tried to teach in his book from that parable. Anyway, I think that's what they're talking about here.
It's a decision to stake yourself on something. You will, you said, do the right thing and let God take care of the consequences. Okay.
Yeah, so that's the thing. Whether it's the right thing or not, it's irrelevant. You need to do the radical, extreme thing. And if it was the wrong radical, extreme thing, well, you're going to pay for the consequences. But if you're not radical enough, you're paying anyway. That's insane. Let's step back.
Do the right thing and let God take care of the consequences. Okay, so my understanding of that is that I've been trying to conceptualize faith, I suppose, to some degree, and you know, the atheist types and the materialists think that.
I guess that's us, right? That's me. I mean, that when he says atheist types or materialists, what he really means is anybody to the left of him. Anybody to the left of hunting the homeless for sport. Anyone who is not absolutely out of their head on Jesus. Like evangelical. If you're a Methodist, you're unacceptable. That's not okay. You need to be an extremist nutcase. That's what he's talking about.
Suppose, to some degree, and you know, the atheist types and the materialists think that faith is the willingness to suspend disbelief in the service of a fairy tale.
Wait a minute. Okay, I'm sorry. Like, I know what all of those words mean, but it's like, God, it's like trying to think through molasses, trying to understand what the hell he's even saying. Why don't you just use normal language? Why are you so pretentious and full of yourself? Let me step back, listen to what he said one more time. Now, what do atheists do?
I suppose, to some degree, and you know, the atheist types and the materialists think that faith is the willingness to suspend disbelief in the service.
Okay, being atheist.
And the materialists think that faith is the.
Okay, atheists think faith is being willing to suspend your disbelief in the face of evidence to the contrary. So basically, you can clearly see that miracles aren't happening. You can clearly see that God is not helping people find their car keys or like curing the blind or whatever. And you're just suspending your disbelief. You're accepting that it's possible that maybe like God, you know, isn't interfering in everyday life because you don't see it happening. That's what atheists, or that's how atheists view it, I guess. Is that what he's saying?
Some degree, and you know, the atheist types and the materialists think that faith is the willingness to suspend disbelief in the service of a fairy tale. And
so it's the willingness to do that in service of a fairy tale.
I think that faith is something entirely different than that. I think it's the willingness to stake yourself on the truth in the faith that whatever happens when you tell the truth is the best thing that could possibly happen.
Okay. You want to, like, explain that? You want to expand upon it? You want to give me some reason? Like, persuade me. I'm open to being convinced. Tell me why you believe that. Are you just going to, like, state that as a factual statement? And I think faith is real. Okay, great. Thanks.
The faith that whatever happens when you tell the truth is the best thing that could possibly happen. And that's regardless of the short-term consequences, right? Because people lie because they want to manipulate the short-term consequences. They think they can get away with it. They think they'll gain something from it. Okay, so I think, no, you tell the truth, and sometimes you're going to pay a price for that, but it's nowhere near as much of a price as you're bloody well going to pay if you lie. Now, you might be too stupid.
Okay. Like, I feel like nothing that he's saying is making any sense, and at this point, it's like a waste of my time to try to dissect and understand it. If he says something that's genuinely, like, worth dissecting, then I'll dissect it. But so far, it sounds like garbage to me. Hi, Owen. Had a question about the game. What are you doing? Farming materia for what? I don't remember doing that when I was playing the game. What did I miss? This is the Northern Crater, the final area in the game. Magic pots give 1,000 AP each. I'm farming AP for materia. And I have a sword called the Apocalypse that gives it gives triple AP. So for every pot that I hit, I get 3,000 AP. So if I get in a battle with 2 magic pots, I get 6,000 AP for each of these. I have 21,000 AP before this mime materia doubles. It's when I max it out, a new one is born, and I'll have a new mime materia. I'm trying to max out the final attack materia, and the revive materia is just there because it's there. And these other ones down here are just here because they're here. Like, they're just filling a slot. Let's continue.
Nowhere near as much of a price as you're bloody well going to pay if you lie. Now,
I guess he's saying that, like, you're going to pay a high price for lying by God. Like, God is going to punish you. Is that what he's saying?
You might be too stupid and willfully blind and naive and crooked and devious and deceptive to understand that, but doesn't mean you're right. So you said, do the right
Like, I don't even understand what he's saying.
thing and let God take care of the consequences. Well, that's a statement of faith. Now, this letter you wrote, is that the message that you're sending to the American church? Are you telling people, say what you believe to be the case or suffer the consequences? Is that the central issue?
The central issue is I read it. Oh, here, these little beans. These are the ones that I was talking about. These guys give like 2,400 AP total between all three. I read the book. The purpose of the book is to convince people that we live in Nazi Germany right now. That Nazis have taken over and we need to radicalize churches. Pastors need to radicalize their churches and militarize them, turn into militias, teach them to shoot, and prepare them to follow the leader that's going to lead us as a country, or lead the church out of this Nazi regime that he believes that we're in right now. And who are the Nazis? Trans people. Trans people are the Nazis. Trans people and their allies are the Nazis. So the point of Letter to the American Church, the book, was to radicalize evangelicals, to radicalize people who believe in God, to be prepared to kill trans people. That's kind of the point of the whole thing. Again, I'm going to write a book about this and break down everything that he said, basically. Not like, oh yeah, and also 0 citations. 0. I didn't find any. I mean, maybe they were there, I missed them, I don't know. I saw 0 citations. He talked about historical figures and the things that they did. When I do that, talk about historical figures, I cite my sources. Where did he hear that? That's plagiarism. If he doesn't cite his sources where he got that information, even if he's not quoting somebody directly, he needs to cite where that information came from, or it's plagiarism. I cite all through my book. I cite like mad through the book that I already wrote. Where are these guys' citations? What the hell is he thinking? This is just nuts, man.
In a word, yes. That was 2 words, but it was the same word, so it counts as one.
Okay, that's right. Let me step back. Listen again.
To the American church, are you telling people, say what you believe to be the case or suffer the consequences? Is that the central issue?
So, are you trying to tell people be radical or God will punish you for it? Really, the point was to convince people that trans people are Nazis, and so are trans allies, and they're coming to kill you, and you need to militarize your churches. That's what the point of it was. But let's see what old Eric Metaxas says the point of his book was.
In a word, yes. That was 2 words, but it was the same word, so it counts as 1 word. Yeah.
I like that. That's good. No, I mean, maybe the point of writing the book was to get people to be radical. But really, the whole book was about how we live in a Nazi regime right now, run by Nazis, trans people. And we need to do something to stop the Nazis.
Yes. That's the thesis. If someone claims to believe in the God of the Bible, which I do, then there's no question that God requires of us to behave as though we believe what we claim to believe. And one of the theses of my book, Letter to the American Church, is that just as the German church drifted tragically in its conception of what is faith, so too the American church has drifted. In other words, they have adopted a kind of Enlightenment rationalist view of faith. Faith is what I believe, which means what I believe intellectually. I assent to these ideas.
Okay, let me tell you what Christian nationalists are doing right now. The goal of Christian nationalism is to militarize churches, to give them AR-15s and shooting lessons, and turn them into militias that can be used to the advantage of whatever nutcase comes along, Donald Trump or whoever. Whichever nutcase comes along and wants to take charge of them. That's the goal of the Christian nationalist movement. So, what Eric Metaxas is saying here, listen again.
Which means what I believe intellectually. I assent to these ideas. So I tick these boxes, these theological boxes. Somebody says, "What do you believe?" And they say, "Well, go to the website of my church. There's a statement of faith. That's what I believe." Well,
this is a direct quote from his book.
That's a fig leaf. It does not fool God.
Direct quote. The fig leaf. He even explained the whole fig leaf thing. Oh my God, he's directly quoting his book right now.
It does not fool the devil. If you actually believe what the Bible says, what the Nicene Creed says, if you actually believe those things, you will behave as though you believe those things. It will.
Okay, great, fine, sure. But the Bible says absolutely nothing about giving your church AR-15s and shooting lessons and preparing them to be militias that can activate sleeper cells that'll activate for some leader when he comes along, Donald Trump or whoever. It says nothing about that. Now, the chapter he's quoting from, hang on, let me listen again.
Bible says what the Nicene Creed.
I remember him specifically saying this.
God, it does not fool the devil.
This was in a pointless chapter that I didn't mark down specifically. He talked about what nationalism is. He talked about, can there be a good dictator? That was chapter 3. The discussion was about the fact that Adam and Eve, in this guy's mind anyway, sinned, and to cover their sin, they took fig leaves to cover themselves so that God couldn't see. And God was like, who told you that you needed to even do that? And that was the sign. So now people use fig leaves to cover their sin. That was the point behind him saying fig leaf there. I'm not sure which chapter it's from. I don't remember, but I remember the discussion. I should have written that down as one of the notes I took. It wasn't even like a letter. It was like a 6-hour audio book, probably a 200-page book.
You actually believe what the Bible says, what the Nicene Creed says. If you actually believe those things, you will behave as though you believe those things. It will affect your life. You will live with courage.
Yeah, except you won't necessarily live the way that Eric Metaxas thinks you should. Which is to say, you won't hate gay people. You won't hate immigrants. You won't want to do this or that. You won't want to hurt people or whatever. You won't want to militarize your church the way that the Christian nationalist movement seems to want to do.
Because you know too much not to live with courage. You're afraid of living fearfully. So
you're afraid of living fearfully? Is that what he said?
You're afraid of living fearfully.
So I guess he's saying you don't want to live in fear anymore, so you should get a gun and and like train with it and get ready to like pull the trigger when a trans person comes to your door and tries to like force you to accept them or something?
So I thought to
you think I'm joking, but that's the Nazi that he named in his book. He said we live in a Nazi world right now. The Nazi regime is here. They're at the gates. They're at the door. And we need to stop them now. We need to speak up now. And who are the Nazis? Black Lives Matter and trans people and their allies. That's what he said in the book. I'm not even joking. Not being flippant, not like being hyperbolic or whatever. No, this is what he said in his book.
afraid of living fearfully. So I thought to myself, that idea, Bonhoeffer wrote a book, The Cost of Discipleship, where he famously talks about cheap grace, because the excuse given by the Germans, the theologian...
Cheap grace is another term that he talked about all through his stupid little book, Letter to the American Church or whatever. He doesn't explain who Bonhoeffer is in the book. I just guessed based on context clues, but Bonhoeffer was, from what I can tell, a pastor who stood against the Nazi regime early on. So, okay.
Famously talks about cheap grace, because the excuse given by the Germans, the theologians and pastors at the time, was that, well, it's all about grace. It's less about what we do, because Luther said, oh, we're not saved by our works. Well, congratulations, you're correct. You're not saved by your works. However, there is a little scripture in the Epistle of James that says...
All of this is from his book. He's quoting straight from the book.
Faith without works is dead.
Yeah, and again, like when I write a book about this subject, I'm going to point out why he's completely misinterpreting or misunderstanding this entire situation, like what's being said here, all of it. Jesus believed that you needed to be a good person to enter the kingdom of God. If you wanted to be saved or whatever, you needed to help the poor, give water to the thirsty, give food to the hungry, give a place to sleep to the homeless. That is what was required according to Jesus. Then Jesus died, and Paul came along, and he said, all you need to do is believe that Jesus was real. And just like that, Christianity became the lazy man's religion. Oh, you telling me all I have to do is, like, make a statement and I'm getting into the kingdom of God? Okay, great. Yeah, sure. I believe that Jesus was real. That was easy. And they came across some problems from that point, because people were professing their faith about Jesus and then going off and sleeping with prostitutes and doing all kinds of things that didn't look good on early Christianity. So in response, they created new doctrine to fix, to prevent people from violating these rules or to keep people in line or whatever. The new doctrine was, you have to go to purgatory if you don't, if you profess your faith to God, but you don't live the way that God wants you to live. You have to go to purgatory first so that your sins can be purged and you're just going to wait there for an indeterminate amount of time. Not going to hell, but you're going to have to go to purgatory to have your sins purged first. Like every doctrine that exists in the first place to fill in a gap that was created by a previous doctrine. It all exists to fill in problems. Anyway, the point that I'm making here, listen again.
Works. However...
Anyway, the point that I'm making here is that he's kind of messing around with the words faith without works is dead, and no man can enter the kingdom except through grace and grace alone, so that no man can boast or whatever. He's messing with those terms. He's messing with the history of what those mean and all of that other junk. I guess it just depends on like who you believe. Like, who do you think is the most reputable, is the most trustworthy, or whatever. I tend to think that Jesus was the most reputable and trustworthy, personally, and I go with what Jesus had to say myself. Jesus said, you have to take care of the poor, you have to love your neighbor as yourself, you have to take care of people, and all of that other junk. That's what Jesus said. So that's what I go with.
There is a little scripture in the Epistle of James that says, faith without works is dead. In other words, if you're foolish enough to believe that you can have faith and not evince it in how you live, then you're a fool. Then actually, biblically, you have no faith. And so I think that bad idea about grace and faith, which, we get, and again, these are always, these are good ideas taken to extremes, right? Oh, faith is what I believe. Yes, that's a nice idea, but it can become unmoored from the reality that what you believe has to be lived out. It has to be an integral part of who you are. It has to be holistic. And the Germans were particularly guilty of this. And what I'm saying is that the American church is particularly guilty of this today. And it's always manifested in the idea that, we shouldn't be political. And I thought to myself, what? That's preposterous. If you're against slavery and you live in the mid-19th century.
This is another, this is actually a really interesting conundrum that he brought up, in my opinion. In the 19th century, should the church have been involved in politics then to fight against slavery? Would it have been correct for the church to be involved in slavery? And in my opinion, the answer is it would have been improper for the church to be involved in politics in the 1800s, even to stop slavery or whatever. People, members of the church, should be vehemently opposed to slavery and fighting against it at every opportunity. And you know what? If some of those people want to get together and organize and work together to fight it or whatever, great. That's great. Fantastic. But the pastor should not be telling the people what to do or what to believe or how to solve this or that or what to fix or, what political positions to hold or whatever. That should not be the case, in my opinion. The pastor should not. Oh, yeah, by the way, I'm about to fight Ruby Weapon here. Wish me luck. I haven't fought Ruby Weapon in a hot minute. So, yeah, we'll see how I do. The pastor should not be getting political, period. The church should not be getting political. It's just what it is, in my opinion. I killed both of my characters, two characters, Sid and Yuffie, from the start, because because Ruby Weapon will not push his fingers through until you kill two of your characters. Now I'm going to use dazers on him. He's vulnerable to being frozen, to being paralyzed. I also have ribbons on everybody, and I'm gonna do life 2 on everybody. I'm gonna do another dazer. I have 99 dazers. Yeah, see, he's moving again. That's dangerous. I need to, let me see. Okay, so I need to get into a cycle where I'm using Hades and then Knights of the Round and then Mime and then Hades, Knights of the Round, Mime. That's kind of the cycle that I need to get into right now. He hits Sid. That could be a problem down the line, but let's see if I can get this going. First, I need to do Sid with Hades. So summon Hades, because that casts slow and stop, I believe. So we're going to do Hades. I love it. Hades, this symbol is a really cool symbol. Yeah, see, he got stopped. Yuffie has Knights of the Round, and Cloud has a bunch of mimes. So I'm going to use Knights of the Round, and then I'm going to use Mime with Cloud. And as soon as that's done, I'm going to wait until Ruby Weapon starts moving again. then I'm going to use Hades again. In fact, I might find an opportunity to use, like, haste on my people to try to make this a little bit easier. But anyway, that's my strategy. So next I'm going to use mime. Now I should mime it like 16 times or something. I think it'll mime it like 5 times. If not, I didn't do it correctly, but we'll see. All right, let's keep listening.
Against slavery, and you live in the mid-19th century, people will say, "Oh, you're being political. Just stick to the gospel." Well,
yeah, you should stick to the gospel as a pastor. The individual members of the church should absolutely fight against it, without a doubt. They should. Nope, it didn't. I messed up my mime. I don't know how I messed up my mime, but I did. That's a shame. All right. So I'm going to use Big Guard. And then I'm going to use Mega Elixir. Did I just? I did. I used Sid. We use Knights of the Round again. All right, let's keep listening. The point is that, yeah, churches should not be involved. Like, pastors shouldn't be telling people what to believe or what to do. Church members, members of the community should absolutely fight slavery, though.
That's what Hitler said to the pastors. Just stick to your little gospel. I'll worry about the Third Reich. I'll worry about everything else. You just worry about your little theology. And then,
I don't think Hitler said that, but okay, whatever.
That thin theological view that some Christians have of what it is to have faith is profoundly wrong. It is unbiblical. Your theology has to be lived out. It has to be integrated into every part of your life. And that's where we have drifted to this idea that people say, I can be against something in my mind, but I don't have to do anything about it. I don't have to live out my life heroically.
No, you can do that. That's perfectly fine. You can live your life out heroically. You can do something about it. You can whatever. That's fine. That's not what he's advocating for, really. He wants you to feel like that's what he's advocating for. What he's really calling for is a Christian nationalist movement to rise up, where pastors train their church members to be extremists ready to do something absolutely psychotic. That's what he's shooting for. That's what he wants. He's trying to get pastors to radicalize their church and to get them to do something psychotic, to get them to be domestic terrorists. Pastors have a lot of sway over what their church members do. They have a lot of power, a lot of authority. Church members listen to the pastor. It's morally wrong for pastors to manipulate that authority, that power, by pushing their political beliefs on members of the church. It's morally wrong. So, anyway, that's my problem with the whole thing. Yes, as an individual, fight slavery to your dying breath. As an individual, fight Nazism to your dying breath. Don't get your church to militarize as a pastor. And also, trans people are not Nazis, okay? Come back to reality. My God.
Have to put my life on the line. I don't have to put my career on the line. If you believe these things, then of course you have to put your life and your career on the line. Otherwise, it's obvious you don't believe these things.
The Bible is a root of...
Wait, was that the ad? Or are we giving... Is he giving us like a... Is this an ad? I think this is an ad. Yeah, I don't know who this is, but I'm not... You know what? Let's listen to the ad. Let's see what this says. I bet it'll be funny.
It's obvious you don't believe these things.
The Bible is a...
It's called Hallow. Hallow. Never heard of it before. Okay?
Root of wisdom, inspiration, and spiritual nourishment. The Hallow app empowers you to explore the Bible's profound...
Oh, it's an app.
...teachings and to effortlessly incorporate them into your daily life. A great place to start while you deepen your understanding of the Bible is to check out Father Mike Schmitz's Bible in a Year, available on the Hallow app exclusively for brief daily readings and reflections. Here you can dive into an extensive library of Bible reading plans accompanied by insightful reflections and audio.
There you go. I beat Ruby Weapon, by the way. I'm sure, like, that was pretty rough. 50,000 AP from that. Yeah, I'm proud of that. Now I get a gold Jacobo, something that I already have. But yeah, there you go. That's how you do it. So I'm going to drop my gold Jacobo off at the farm, and then I'm going to go to the Calm Traveler and get a new one. Tell me in the chat what I should name this one. I think it only has like 5 or 6 characters. Yeah, I think there are 6 characters that I can use. Tell me what I should name the gold Jacobo. I'm going to save. That's how you beat Ruby Weapon. That's how you beat Emerald Weapon, if you were curious. Okay, now let's keep listening to this Hallow thing, this Hallow app.
Guided meditations. Whether you're a seasoned Bible reader or just starting your journey, Hallow provides a platform for you to engage with Scripture like
a seasoned Bible reader? Is that what they said?
Never before. Studying the Bible's literary brilliance has influenced
Literary brilliance, they say. Okay, there is more literary... I have to give the Bible credit. There's more literary technique in there than I expected there to be, actually. But there's not literary brilliance by any stretch. Foreshadowing is not literary brilliance. How and why isn't stochastic terrorism a crime yet? That's a good question. Because the people who make the laws use it to their advantage. That's the answer. Chico, Ruby, Steve, Spoonie. I like Steve. Oh, it's a Desert Rose. Want to trade for that? Yes, I want to trade. And there's my gold Jacobo. It's all yours. By this point, you should already have a gold Jacobo. So it's not really useful.
Countless writers, poets, and artists throughout history. By studying the Bible yourself, you'll gain a deeper appreciation for the power of storytelling, symbolism, and metaphor, enriching your understanding of literature across different genres. The Hallow app also helps you connect with a community of like-minded individuals, sharing experiences, insights, and encouragement along the path to spirit.
No, thank you. I think I am good without the Hallow app. Okay, let's skip forward and continue on. Well, we know who's shouting out Jordan Peterson and Eric Metaxas nowadays, don't we? These people are a joke, man. Tell me what you think about this in the comments. This is just sad. I like Steve so far, but let me check. Usually I check Twitch first. This time I checked YouTube first instead. Nugget. Nugget. Everybody wants Nugget. Satan, Nugget. Okay, Satan or Nugget seem to be Twitch's names, as far as I can tell. Cluckers. That's good. I don't know if I have enough spaces for Cluckers, though. If I do, I'm going to name it Cluckers. Let me see. C-L-U-C-K. No, I don't. They should give you more characters. Steve is pretty good. Anybody catch if this is a dude Jacobo or a chick Jacobo? It's going to be Steve either way. Guys can be named, or girls can be named Steve too. Okay, male, Steve.